Hello, and thank you for joining us today for the webinar on how to operationalize the MITRE ATT&CK framework. I'm Grant Swanson, the Director of Demand Generation here at SafeBreach, and with me is our Head of Solutions Engineering, Michael DeGroat. Welcome, Michael.
Thank you, Grant. I'd first like to start by talking a little bit about the reality of enterprise security. According to Gartner, 97% of breaches are at companies which have already deployed the right controls. 99% of attacks have been out there and known for years, and 95% of firewall breaches are due to simply misconfiguration. So first, let's think about what we can do about these problems. SafeBreach is a breach and attack simulation platform designed for security control validation. What we do is simulate attacks to test your defenses. We visualize your security posture with data-driven results, and then we help you remediate holistically to defend your enterprise. First, let's talk about simulating attacks. We safely and continuously run thousands of known threat indicators and attack behaviors to validate and improve your security controls. These may range from threat groups to TTPs, malware types, custom-built attacks that you may write on your own, with over 10,000 plus attack methods in the SafeBreach playbook. We have an extensive hacker playbook led by Itzhak Kotler, our CTO, and Amit Klein, our VP of Research. We have over 10,000 attack methods in this playbook. We have an emerging threat SLA tied to the US CERT alerts to deliver content to our playbook within 24 hours of that US CERT alert. In addition, Itzhak and Amit were contributors to the MITRE ATT&CK framework as it was being developed. Using SafeBreach, we can help you visualize your posture. It may be the MITRE ATT&CK heat map, giving you a risk score based on key risk indicators, an explorer view of the kill chain, and then executive reporting. We then help you remediate holistically, giving you actionable prioritized remediation by business impact. We aggregate and share remediation data to endpoint, network, and SIM solutions. And we give you the ability to drill down to individual results for security control validation. Now let's talk briefly about how SafeBreach would be deployed in the common enterprise. If we think about your environment, you may start out with an access zone, or what we may think of as a DMZ. You'll have a user space where you have your users, a crown jewel location where you have maybe your sensitive database assets or your sensitive user information, and then a server zone. This could be on-premise, this could be in the cloud, it could be hybrid. But what you do is you layer security controls to defend these areas. What SafeBreach does is deploy a virtual ethical hacker that we host and maintain for you, and then deploy our simulators, whether it's in the DMZ, on a Windows server, a Linux server, and all the trust zones, or even on endpoints in the user space. These simulators conduct attacks at the behest of the management console and help you validate how effective the controls you have are against a wide range of attacks, including those that align to the MITRE ATT&CK framework. So I'm going to first now jump over to our demo system to give you a brief demo of the solution and how we can help you quantify your risk against the MITRE ATT&CK framework. So here we are in the SafeBreach environment. As you can see, all the simulators that SafeBreach has are these little circles here, giving a description that's relevant to the organization or the part of the organization. So Well, different colors and classifications here. So overall, the platform tracks 5 key risk indicators that are averaged to become part of your risk score here. You can see it's a 0 to 10 score, 0 being good, 10 being bad. But one of the key risk indicators that we track, obviously, is the MITRE ATT&CK framework risk. If I click on the MITRE ATT&CK framework risk, you're going to see the top 3 simulators that present the biggest risk against the MITRE ATT&CK framework based on simulation results. You can then also look at it from the enterprise wide. I want to know what are kind of the overall high level risk posture of simulators in the environment, green being very good status and yellow being medium, red being high risk. To just show the differences here, if I click on our exposure time, you'll see that in our little demo environment here, we're not fixing a lot of stuff. So the exposure time here is pretty high, but clicking back to the MITRE ATT&CK framework risk, you can see that here we're going to adjust the view and you can see what the risk is. If I clear this filter again, you'll be able to see back to those top 3 simulators. Now, this data is aggregated across all the different types of simulations that you may run. For example, if you're running multiple different threat groups, this risk score will be aggregated against all of those different threat groups. If you're simulating different tactics and techniques, this risk score will again aggregate all that data and give you a comprehensive risk view. If you want to enumerate out and test different parts of the playbook or specific threat groups and the like, there's several ways of doing that here in the platform. But the first thing I am going to do is highlight the playbooks, as I've talked about here. It's pretty broad. Right now, SafeBreach has over 11,000 breach methods, and there is, as you can see, a lot of coverage for the MITRE ATT&CK framework here against the tactics side. You can sort the playbook in a number of different ways to kind of fit the need that you're looking for. If we're to focus on MITRE, we'll start with, you can search by the tactics, right? So you see here on this right column here, where these particular attacks align on the MITRE tactics. You can also sort by threat groups. So say we are interested in APT32, and we want to simulate all of the attacks that are relevant for APT32. What we can do is look at, first of all, we can look at all the attacks that are associated with it just by scrolling here. We can see all the different things. We can even see out enumerated specific attacks that are dedicated to a technique that do not have a associated attack campaign with them. Say, for example, I want to look at T01 or T036, excuse me. First of all, we'll give you the details of what we're attempting to do, the classifications against the MITRE ATT&CK framework and the actual details of that. So you can drill into the nitty gritty and nuts and bolts of every single tactic and technique that we have coverage for. More broadly, you can then select each individual simulation or a simulation group as a whole and execute those attacks directly from the playbook. If I were to click here, you'll see here with just a couple clicks, I can run on a select number of simulators. I can kick this off, run on all the simulators in the environment. So you can be very targeted or very broad on how you wish to take these tactics and techniques and simulate them in your environment. Even furthermore so, if I were to clear out this particular filter here and click out the clear out this little filter here, that'll let me. And moving on, you can also filter down specifically to the technique as well. So you can look at every part of the MITRE ATT&CK framework that SafeBreach has coverage for, and then select those specific techniques and run them directly here from the playbook. In addition to, you can also create your own custom techniques for things that SafeBreach has not added to the playbook, although 11,000 techniques is quite a bit of things to simulate. Coming back to the results, once you start running these simulations, you can run them either directly here or from the test plans. You can look at individual test plans. So say, for example, I created a test plan around APT29. I want to know, I'd schedule this to run on a regular basis. I can track how I'm doing over the course of time, up or down. I can look at where things looked, a month ago or so. Okay, we were slightly higher. Why is that? Were there more content added and so forth? You can start doing that investigation here. You can even rerun after a mitigation or remediation cycle, rerun this directly from the playbook, either run it now or add it to the queue to be executed later. So you can refresh this test on demand, in addition to scheduling it on a regular basis. So as these simulations are running and are completing, the results are coming into the platform and we start aggregating them in a couple of different ways. The first way is to visualize the kill chain. So here we have what's called the Breach Explorer. If I choose my targets, say I'm interested in how could my PCI segment be breached, the platform will highlight, based on the results of simulations, all the possible attack paths and different steps the hacker would have to take to reach the PCI segment. This will help you prioritize as well as identify where you may be able to, say, give you a little more time on a different area because you have more to focus on in a different part of the attack chain. You can play through different scenarios, highlighting that scenario, highlighting that path, allowing you to look at different avenues that a hacker could take. And each step here is highlighting a step that a hacker is going to take: infiltration, lateral movement, and then ultimately onto exfiltration of a sample data asset. This is the visualization component of it. You can drill into all the nuts and bolts here if you want to look at each individual attack phase and all the attacks that were successful, or you can come directly to the enumerated list. Keeping things in the context of MITRE, this is the entire results of the aggregated results of all the simulations that have been executed, whether they are targeted to the MITRE attack framework or not. But we have what's called a MITRE heat map. So the MITRE heat map is color coded to help you identify your risk against a particular technique or tactic. So as you can see here, the reds are high, medium is orange, and low risk is there. So if I were to hit on I want to focus on my highs, the platform will highlight where your biggest risk is. If you want to look and report on how you're doing and look at your lowest risk areas, you can overlay that as well. So it allows you to play through different scenarios and think about different risk impacts along the MITRE attack framework. You can then also look at a detection score. So where am I actually having some detections come through by my security controls? So this may actually indicate that you may be doing a little better because you're at least alerting on some actions and not necessarily blocking on them. There's also a detailed view as well. You can look at each individual tactic and technique by a success rate. So how much was not blocked and how much of that was not blocked was actually logged by a security controller. This is where our integrations into its SIMs and security controls come into play. You can scroll around and look at all the different ways and tactics and looking at individual techniques, success rates, and even how many simulations were attributed to that particular technique that you've executed. Moving back to the heat map view, we can also look at specific techniques and drill into those techniques in detail. So say, let's pick one here. Let's say we're going to force authentication. And I want to look at all of the attacks that are relevant to force authentication. So these would be all the attacks that were successful along that specific technique. I can then drill down to each individual result and look at each individual variant of that particular attack, come through, then, hey, look, we have something that's detected. I can then drill into this action. And what this is going to tell me is, hey, first of all, what is this simulation designed to do? Remediation recommendations relevant to the MITRE attack framework. What are the parameters that we operated on? So what user did we use to impersonate? What path did we try? What was the hash we used? Classifications, and ultimately the integration with that security control that can help you identify where in your security control something has been mitigated or not mitigated or detected. You can then send this to orchestration, send this to your security orchestration platform, and even to your ticketing system to start the business flow. So you can use your orchestration for a remediation ticketing to get that business flow going. And then lastly, coming back and validating that things have been remediated. Coming into the platform, clicking the rerun button, this will rerun this attack. So you can say you went and made your change in your security controller, and you want to validate that change has actually been put into effect. You can go ahead and click that rerun button. It's going to put it to the top of the queue and then give you back the results of that execution. You can also then filter additionally, using all the parameters. You can come here and drill into every specific part of the platform that we have categorized, whether it's the classifications against MITRE, whether it's the network parameters that we use, port protocol, etc., attack type, and also environmental information, target, attacker, and the like. The last thing that I'm going to point out is reporting. So two ways that SafeBreach can help you along the way. We have what's called our insights. The insights will allow you to view things in the context of not only MITRE, but the entire playbook. This is giving you real actionable information about the simulations that you can then take and then bring your risk down by quantifiable amounts. You can also align this to the MITRE ATT&CK framework. So say, for example, I want to look at a particular threat group. And I'm going to look at what do I need to do to quickly reduce my risk in my environment against APT32. And so this would then adjust to allow you to see what would be relevant for APT32. So if we're thinking about threat groups, maybe it's APT29. You can see that the insights adjust as you look at those different threat groups. You can then look at them in the context also of the security control category that should be blocking this particular action. Then from an enterprise reporting standpoint, looking at the overall risk. So first of all, we take a overall security risk score and convey that into a report. But more specifically against the MITRE ATT&CK framework, we can give you a MITRE ATT&CK risk. So what is my overall MITRE attack risk? If you remember from the dashboard, there was that 9%. This number is the same as across the entire environment. You can look at the total number of simulations, how many was not blocked, and that risk score associated with each individual MITRE tactic. Furthermore, from this threat group position, you can look at a high level overview of how much my total risk against MITRE, against threat groups, and then even focus on specific threat groups. Say, for example, APT30, you can then look at and drill into what's my attack surface against this particular threat group. What is my overall status? And then where on the attack framework is the biggest risk, and what were my security controls doing? And that is just a brief summary of how you can operationalize the MITRE ATT&CK framework using SafeBreach. And I'm going to hand this back over to Grant for any questions.
Thank you, Michael, for the demonstration. We'll move to the question and answer portion of the webinar, and I will ask the questions in the order that they were received. Go ahead and type in any questions that you have in the chat box. And if any of the questions weren't answered in the live version of the webinar, we will answer them immediately after the conclusion. So Michael, the first question that came in is, can these simulations have an impact on our production environment?
It's actually a really good question. And the answer to that is no. By design, the platform is to be non-destructive and non-intrusive to the environments that we're running simulations on. This goes back to how the playbook is formed. Simulations are run in a very building block fashion, which do not require us to execute ransomware in your environment or do anything malicious that could create an issue into your production systems.
Excellent, thank you for that. The second question that just came in, how many simulations in your playbook cover MITRE?
Another good question. So as we talked about, the playbook is well over 11,000 attack methods. So we have coverage for well over 50% of that is aligned to MITRE. So when you're looking at our playbook, over 11,000 breach methods, do the math there of over 50% there. It's quite a substantial coverage for MITRE ATT&CK.
Excellent, thank you. The next question that just came in is, what other attacks can you simulate outside of MITRE?
Yeah, another good question. So if we think about and look at the MITRE ATT&CK framework, it's heavily focused on host-based actions and activities that are originating on the host, or actions that would be detected by host-based controls. So a lot of the attacks that we have outside of that MITRE ATT&CK framework are network-oriented. And so our playbook contains a lot of things network-oriented, advanced exfiltration techniques, advanced infiltration techniques, etc., that may not necessarily have a category or a technique assigned to it by the MITRE ATT&CK framework. And using our playbook search tool, you can find all of those attacks that aren't already classified by the MITRE ATT&CK framework.
Okay, next question that just came in. Can you use the MITRE heat map for a specific threat group?
Yeah, absolutely. So when we're running simulations in the environment, it's very easy to come into our results. And as you can see here, we'll go back to the heat map. This is the heat map that's generated for the all of the aggregated results of the simulations. So say, for example, you had APT29 and APT33. You wanted to have a breakdown of all the different techniques that you coverage and your risk associated with that. It's very easy to come down here to our search tool, drill down to threat groups, and I'm just going to type in APT 29, select that, APT 33, and select that, and apply filters. And you're going to see that the heat map automatically adjusted to only include the coverage that is there for those particular threat groups. And the same thing would apply. You can focus on the specific risk layers that you want, look at a specific technique, drill down to the results of that, look at all the results, again, corresponding to security controls and actions that you may have, all based on that one specific or two or three or four threat groups that you want to focus your efforts on there. So it's absolutely possible to do and very easy to do with the platform.
Interesting. Thank you for that. I have one more question that I'll ask as we're running out of time here. Can these threat groups, APT29, APT33, can these simulations be automated?
Yeah, so that's actually a really good point and benefit to the SafeBreach platform, right? The SafeBreach platform, when we talk about operationalizing MITRE ATT&CK, this is kind of where it comes into our wheelhouse, is being able to automate a lot of this stuff and then continuously test your environment against these particular attacks. So it's really simple to do. First thing we're going to think about is just looking at the content of attacks that are in those particular threat groups. So we can come to the playbook again and drill down to the threat groups. And here I'm going to look for, just for example, APT 29. And so here I'm going to see all of the attacks that are associated with APT 29. I could simply just come here and do a one-off execution that would create this one-time plan. What is better would be to automate it, schedule it on a regular basis, remediate those actions that you need to, retest, and then evaluate and make sure that you're not drifting away from that. So we do that with a concept called test plans. And we already have a couple here built. But the test plan would be you come in here, you would enumerate out the attacks that you want to test with. This can be anything from a threat group or to a specific set of techniques or tactics on top of that if you wanted to. But the idea is I'm creating a test plan for a specific use case that I want to be able to use to repeat. Here you can see that we've got the attacks that are associated with it. You can even call out specific areas of your environment. It may be your customer success environment, it may be your user space, it may be your server space, and you can enumerate out, I'm only going to test in these areas because that's what my use case may be defined as. And then you can set it to run on that scheduled basis. And then say, for example, here we're doing it on Monday at 10 a.m. And then now when that starts running, I can come back to my dashboard here, and I think I covered this earlier. You can then look at the results, the long list of the results with a summary built into it, or go back to that heat map view and drill through the heat map specifically around those particular techniques that you're interested in. So there we go.
Perfect. Thank you, Michael. I wanted to let the audience know that we are also offering a custom MITRE heat map for anyone who is interested in running a proof of concept with SafeBreach. If you're attending RSA later this month, the SafeBreach booth number is 5353, right next to CrowdStrike. Thank you for attending and enjoy the rest of your day.